and they can't see there's another screen of people. So it's very interesting. And that happened to me at Lower Booker Creek Watershed meeting. Amy Ryan was visible, but I was like, are there only 8 people in this meeting? She's like, no, there's 18. I'm like, well, I can't see anybody else. And there'd be a talking voice with a little label up top that so-and-so's talking. And I'm like, where'd they come from? What's going on? So it's interesting.
Ty, we're going to add a little potty icon next to the raise hand.
Yeah, there you go. Bio break.
I would be all for that.
So, I mean, you can go to your audio and disconnect the, so go to the little arrow where it says, and you can leave computer audio.
And she wanders out again.
I'm done.
Bretton, you're still live audio. You might want to mute yourself. Or not, it's fine. Okay. Amy Harvey, I made another change to one of the boards and commissions. Who do I need to send that information to?
If you email advisory boards that goes to several of us who are dealing with the advisory boards.
Okay. I will do that. We had a recent update for someone who we made a change. All right, I will do that.
See who we have. Councilmember Parker, you want to do a sound check real quick?
Sure.
Good evening.
5 minutes.
Pauline, I think you slipped in while I stepped away. You want to do a sound check real quick?
Sure. Hey. Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Good evening to those who just joined. Quick sound check.
Hey,
Good evening.
hello.
Hi, Amy Harvey.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Good job showing up, everybody. This is good. Just a couple.
Karen.
If all we have to do is show up, then I feel like the standards are low.
Okay, watch out. Just the beginning of the meeting.
Good evening. Reese and who else just recently joined?
Hi, Amy. How are you?
Good evening.
This is Anne. Hey, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Mary Jane, I believe.
Yeah. There. Hello.
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 Good evening, John. You want to do a quick sound check? Oop,
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Thank you.
Okay.
There's Lauren. Good evening, Lauren.
Good evening.
Ryan, I'm going to move you over just a minute. Ryan, are you seeing a pop-up screen that should ask you to, there you go, validate to move over?
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome. Thank you. Ready to
All
go.
right. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 23rd Town of Chapel Hill Town Council meeting. There are 4 items on our agenda for discussion tonight. First up, we'll be considering how to allocate excess fund balance from our previous fiscal year. It will be followed by an initial public hearing on the 2022-2023 annual budget. We'll get an update from staff on the implementation of our climate action plan. And we have a concept plan for the flats, a student housing project being proposed for 607 MLK Junior Boulevard. And I have one note from the clerk's office. If there's anyone from the public who has joined tonight's meeting due to an interest in the Weaver Dairy Road residential concept plan, that item's been scheduled for March 9th. And for some reason, there was confusion on that issue. Just wanting to make sure you know it's for March 9th. So again, we're happy to have you join us. We are still in a Zoom format. And I will tell you, we have since learned, we've been doing this for almost 2 years, but we've learned that not everyone can see everyone on the Zoom format in the evening. So I want to make sure the public is aware and rest assured that your council members are listening, but that not all boxes are displayed on the main screen. And council members take public input very seriously, and we do want to hear from you. So tonight, if you're wishing to speak on an item and you pre-registered, great. But if you didn't, you are welcome to use the raise hand function and we'll call you in to speak to us. We try to call 2 people in at a time. And we ask that you keep your comments to within 3 minutes. So we have that. So in keeping with our virtual rules for virtual meetings, we're going to have a roll call. So as I call your name, council members, if you will please unmute yourself and say aye, present, or whatever works for you. Mayor Pro Tem Karen Stegman.
Here.
Councilmember Jess Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Camille Berry.
Here.
Councilmember Ty Wynn.
Here.
Councilmember Paris Miller Fouché.
Here.
Councilmember Michael Parker.
Here.
Councilmember Amy Ryan.
Here.
And Councilmember Adam Searing.
Here.
And the mayor is also here. So thank you for that. Tonight, we're actually going to start off with a Celebrating Successes video. Very excited about that. And it's focused on Chapel Hill's amazing community partners. Over the past 2 years, one of the things we're most proud of has been the way our community has looked out for one another. Nowhere is that more apparent than in the human service efforts that have provided support to people throughout Chapel Hill. Tonight, along with our town staff, we want to thank all the community partners who've made our efforts stretch even farther by highlighting those efforts. So Ryan, if you can bring up the video, please.
We recognize that many nonprofits, community agencies, and local government units have rallied together in the face of the worldwide pandemic in early 2020. While those efforts have not and will not stop, we wanted to take time to recognize their responses in key areas. When access to food was threatened, our community stepped up. We have distributed more than 34,464 boxes of food to the community with the help of the North Carolina Food Bank, Porch, the Interfaith Council, the Orange County Rape Crisis Center, Two Men in a Truck, the Jackson Center, and the Boys and Girls Club, not to mention the faithful volunteers that showed up each week. We'd also like to thank Habitat for Humanity and the Living Legends Group for conducting voter registration in the fall of 2020 during several of our distributions.
The loss of employment and reductions in wages had a huge impact on our community. We worked together with the Orange County Department of Housing and Community Development and the towns of Carborough and Hillsborough to establish the Housing Helpline. Since the beginning of the pandemic, more than 784 households in Orange County have received assistance, and more than $2 million in federal, state, and local funds have been allocated to households needing assistance. Individual community members stepped up as well, generously donating more than $57,000 to the program.
Congregate living facilities were no longer a safe alternative for people experiencing homelessness. The town, Orange County, IFC, and service providers arranged for residents to move from the community house and Homestart to a local hotel. We would like to thank Manish Atma of Atma Hotel Groups for providing 66 rooms.
When masks were determined to be a vital tool to combat the pandemic, our community stepped up to help get them to people who couldn't find that resource on their own. These organizations and groups helped us distribute more than 38,000 masks to individuals, especially before the vaccines were readily available.
Thank you to the Chapel Hill Carborough Y for quickly developing scholastic support centers to support kids while attending virtual school. The town provided 10 scholarships to kids to attend the scholastic support centers. We're glad students have had the opportunity to return to the classroom, and we hope this service provided a necessary outlet to bridge the gap.
Refugee community partners quickly organized neighborhood-based school and child care support circles for elementary and middle-aged schoolers and operated 20 neighborhood support circles for low-income families. And through the generosity of reading partners and food for students, thousands of books were provided to families in neighborhood support circles, scholastic support centers, and school distribution sites.
Once vaccinations were readily available, Piedmont Health provided information about COVID vaccination clinics for Chapel Hill public housing residents. We know the importance of getting information to community members in the language they understand best. Thanks to the Refugee Community Partnership, Chick-fil-A, and several town employees, more than 100 town communications were translated from English into Spanish, Mandarin, Burmese, Arabic, and Korean. We also appreciate El Centro for sharing information with its clients and the Latinx community about COVID testing, vaccines, and other important information.
Without these community efforts, we could not have made the progress we did in our collective fight against COVID-19. There is more work to be done in our recovery efforts. We learned that we are a community of we, not a community of me, and that already puts us on the path to a successful future.
Wow, can we get a round of applause from our council members? Because that truly was amazing. The efforts that our town staff working with community partners really makes us a town of we. And I know a lot of you help participate in these events as well. But wow, we were able to cover more people and help in more ways because we work really well with our community partners. And that's through the dedication of our staff really coordinating all those efforts outside of their normal job descriptions. So thank you to everyone who participated in helping out during this time. Okay, I have a couple of quick announcements for this evening. We are having a council work session next Wednesday evening on the 828 project, Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. That's the coal ash / police station, MSC, whatever we want to call that project. So that's there. We are having CCES, the Council Committee on Economic Sustainability. We'll meet next Friday, March 4th. We'll be talking about the town's economic development goals, a revised parking payment in lieu program, and the public is encouraged to attend these meetings. You're welcome to check the town calendar to find out how to get the link and sign up for these meetings. Our communications team has asked me to encourage anyone wishing to receive a weekly update focused on upcoming town meetings and events to sign up for Town Week. Town Week makes it easy to take a quick glance at everything that is coming up, and you can find out more about how to sign up on the town website. And last but not least, we have a birthday celebration this weekend coming up of our own Camille Berry. We wish you an early happy birthday this weekend, and welcome to the group. But we like to announce birthdays, and we don't say how old you are. We just say congratulations and happy birthday. So that's going out. Does anyone else have any? You're welcome. Announcements? Mr. Nguyen.
Thank you. Guys, wanted to take a quick moment to thank all of our community members that came out to the launch event for the Summer Careers Academy of Orange County. Super excited about that. That will be an 8-week program for local high schoolers. It will be the first opportunity for students in the Chapel Hill Carborough City School District to have access to skilled trades in the construction trades, and they'll receive a living wage and industry recognized credentials at the end of it. And just wanted to announce that we're officially starting to accept applications for this summer's program. You can find more information at summercareersacademy.com. And yeah, if anybody's listening and is interested in their kiddo having a great career, please go on our website.
That's great. Thank you. What a great new initiative. We think it's wonderful. Anyone else with an announcement? Okay, then we will bring it to items for the public to speak to us on items not on the printed agenda. I know we have one petition already out there with Wayne Hines' request to overhaul the door zone bike lane on Country Club Road and correctly place shared lane markings. I don't know if he's here, but we welcome people to speak at this point in time on items not on the printed agenda. So I'm not sure we had anybody pre-register, so you use the raise your hand function. Mayor Pro Tem Stegman will bring you in, or call your name out, I should say, to bring you in. All right, I see one raised hand.
Oh, it went back down.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's back up. Okay, Neil Benson would like to speak.
Maybe unsure.
Come on in.
Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, sweet. Sorry about that. There's a little technical difficulty. So hello, my name is Neil Bench, and I'd just like to take 2 minutes to quickly speak as a resident of Chapel Hill. You guys obviously have millions of priority items to think about relative to spending these scarce town funds. And I'm not really speaking to the excess funds and the ARPA or anything like that. I'm just speaking in relative terms. It'd be great if the town council would keep as a high priority, and from my perspective, some funding thoughts relative to outdoor recreation facilities. And just to name a few would be in general, some deferred park maintenance issues. One that comes to mind is the resurfacing of the Cedar Falls turf fields, which get used by many, many people at no cost. Also, the repair and restructuring or rebuilding of the tennis court facilities, both at Hargraves and at Cedar Falls. Again, those are outdoor they are available to anyone, and they are usable at no cost. And then last but not least, it would be great if the town would, the town council members would think of building greenways and constructing greenways from a perspective as the town of Chapel Hill should always be constructing the next mile of a greenway. I think that would help us move forward with action and additional greenways being built at a hopefully a faster pace. That's all I'd like to say. And thank you very much, and good luck with all your priority choices.
Thank you, Mr. Bench. This will be a great topic to bring up during the public forum, which is on our agenda tonight for the budget as we move through those ideas. And we appreciate that. I will share with you that the fields aren't, they actually do charge to play on the fields. So there's different things going on, but we do need to take a look at all that. Thank you.
But isn't there, sorry, and I know I'm not supposed to discuss,
We're not
but aren't there?
back and forth. I can talk with you offline. That'd be
Okay, okay. I thought there was some open time though.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well,
Move to receive and refer.
okay. It's been moved by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Stegman, that we receive and refer the petition on the door zone bike lane item. Roll call vote, please. Mayor Pro Tem Stegman.
Aye.
Ms. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen.
Aye.
Sorry, losing track here. Ms. Miller-Fushi.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Ryan.
Aye.
Mr. Searing.
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well. So thank you very much. All right. Next up, we have the consent agenda. How do we say on the consent agenda, please?
I move the consent agenda.
Second.
So moved by Ms. Anderson, second by Mr. Nguyen, that we move the consent agenda. Any discussion? Then a roll call vote, please. Ms. Stegman.
Aye.
Ms. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen.
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fushi.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Ryan.
Excuse me.
Mr. Searing. Oh, sorry, Mr. Searing. I couldn't tell with the comment.
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well. Thank you very much. Okay, you also have items in your information packet. We can, I will give you an update on the petition status. Our staff's now meeting quarterly to go through and see which ones we can communicate, close out, help with, so that we can get a handle. We know the list is rather long now. We've been using resources to deal with COVID, but now it's time to start getting back to some of these items, just to let you know. So that brings us up to our first item for discussion. Approve the fiscal 2021 excess fund balance appropriation. We have Ms. Oland with us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Amy Oland, and I'm the Director of Business Management. I'm here tonight to follow up on the previous discussions we've had, most recently the presentation from February 9th, where we discussed possible scenarios on how to allocate the fiscal year 2021 excess fund balance. Based on the feedback we heard from Council, we are here tonight with a final recommendation. Our recommendation for this evening is for Council to enact ordinances O-2 and O-3 to approve the appropriation of $4 million in fiscal year 21 excess fund balance. $500,000 was already appropriated from the $4.5 million that we had been discussing over the last couple months on January 26th, when Council approved phase 1 of the classification and compensation study. So based on our discussions with Council, we heard that there was interest to see dollars used to replenish areas that were cut in the budget, areas that have been underfunded in the budget, and to address priorities such as affordable housing and bike pedestrian safety. Our recommendation includes $500,000 for affordable housing and human services projects, $750,000 towards building maintenance, $900,000 towards vehicle replacements, $750,000 towards the purchase of a new fire engine, $600,000 towards street resurfacing, $250,000 toward budget ads, And one thing that we wanted to just mention here as we think about the budget adds, a previous option that we had put forward before council had 500,000 allocated as a placeholder for a splash pad. We've removed the 500,000 based on discussions with council, but our recommendation would include 15,000 of the one-time adds for the splash pad feasibility study. And based on discussions we heard from council at our last conversation, we added 250,000 towards some bike and pedestrian safety projects. So next steps, we intend to use council priorities that we will be discussing with council at phase 2 of the retreat and the March and April budget work sessions to inform the fiscal year 23 budget developments. So again, our recommendation for council this evening is to enact ordinances O-2 and O-3 to approve the appropriation of $4 million in fiscal year 21 excess fund balance. And this concludes my presentation for this evening.
Thank you very much. Can you bring us back to full screen, or does council want this screen lifted? Okay, well, we're back to full screen.
Happy to put it back up.
Okay, well, if we need it, we have. Mr. Manager, did you have any comments to share?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Well, I will say to council, this is a great position to be in, that we have to figure out how to spend money. A lot of towns in North Carolina are having the opposite problem. So we should be very grateful that we have this issue. All right, it's time for clarifying questions from council, and a friendly reminder, if you can aggregate your questions so you're only called on once, that would be helpful in moving our meeting along. And then we'll hear from the public, and then we'll come back to statements. Are there any clarifying questions? All right. Are there members of, Ms. Anderson?
Sorry, so I know it's in the packet, but Amy, do you have a slide or something so that we could be really transparent about the one-time departmental expenditures?
I don't have a slide, but I can talk you through. I mean, our next steps are to discuss with the manager's office some of the things that came forward during the budget based on conversations we had with council at our last session. The one thing we were thinking about focusing on was some software needs. So we'll be evaluating those and can certainly report back to council if there's an interest to hear kind of what we've decided to move forward with. And then to think about that, to set aside the $15,000 for the feasibility study, since we know that there's interest in moving that forward. And that seemed like the logical next step for that project.
Okay. All right. So do we have members of the public wishing to speak on this item? If you are,
Jeff Green said he does not want to speak now.
Yes, and we got several emails today in support of the changes. So we'll see that. All right, going once, going twice. All right, back to council. Comments from council. Ms. Ryan?
Just a quick one. Thank you to staff. Thank you for the staff that brought us this excess fund balance, which was a very lovely thing. And thank you for your focus on essential town needs. I think that that is great. I'm really happy to see our vehicle replacement is almost half EV. And I know there's just some vehicles that that's not available for, but I think the goal is great. So as we move forward, anything we can do, but really nice job, everyone.
How about if I move vote 2?
I was going to make one more comment, but I'll take your move. I was going to say, thank you though. Really appreciate all the hard work and listening to us when we talked about bike and ped safety, and there were a lot of projects on there that could actually move forward. And then I had a good discussion with the manager about the street repaving. Even though we're doing the $7 million bond this spring, those take time to implement, and we have some projects that could actually get done now in this summer with those monies. But I do want to still encourage the manager to get different bids for the roof and repair at the old post office building. Still think that number's high. Just want to make sure we're doing our due diligence so that if there's excess money, we can spend that too. So thank you. All right, Ms. Stegman.
Just a quick, I have heard, I won't name names, that there may be some private funding to help with that. So I can follow up, but there's some interest from some folks and perhaps helping to fund that. So just to plant that seed before I forget and don't tell you.
Okay, Ms. Berry?
Thank you. I'm coming on to say thank you to the staff. Thank you, Maurice and Amy, and all of those who have worked with you. I think this is great that you led our town in being frugal and being prudent. And now we're able to re-inject these funds where they're most needed.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Parker,
Second.
Second.
second by Mr. Nguyen. We'll have a roll call vote. I know the staff will be thrilled to get this one decided. So, Ms. Stegman,
Aye.
Ms. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen,
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fouché,
Aye.
Mr. Parker,
Aye.
Ms. Ryan,
Aye.
Mr. Searing,
Aye.
and the mayor says aye as well. Good work, folks. Go spend some money.
I move, I also have to move 03.
Oh,
Second.
can't spend money yet. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Mr.
Second.
Parker and moved, and who seconded? Ms. Berry?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Ms. Stegman,
Aye.
Ms. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen,
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fouché,
Aye.
Mr. Parker,
Aye.
Ms. Ryan,
Aye.
Mr. Searing,
Aye.
and the mayor says aye as well. Now can we spend the money? Okay, great. All right. I like to spend money. It has good-
And Mayor, I just wanted to say to you and to the council, thank you for your guidance and assistance in directing us over the course of the last month or so as we've had this discussion, very productive discussions with you about how to utilize this money in the best way possible for our community. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we would love to get updates as the money has been allocated. And I know it takes a while to order the fire truck and several of the vehicles. So I know those updates will be a long time in coming, but thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 8, initial budget public forum on the annual budget, capital program, use of grants and related items, and potential legislative requests. What a mouthful. There we go.
All right. Good evening. My name is Matt Brinkley, and I'm the Assistant Director of Business Management. Tonight, I'll be presenting on the initial public forum for the FY 2022-23 town operating and capital budgets. My presentation has 17 slides and should last about 10 minutes. Tonight, I will briefly introduce the topics for the forum, describe the next steps in the budget process, provide an update on the status of budget preparations. The purpose of tonight's forum is to introduce the budget topics and provide the opportunity for council to hear comments from the public. The topics for the public forum include the town's annual operating budget, our capital investment program, community development block grant, home program funding, housing capital funds program, public transportation grants program, downtown service district, and potential legislative proposals. Background information on these topics is presented in the staff memo and attachments for this item. The town's annual operating budget includes funding for police and fire protection, public works operations, including street maintenance, solid waste collection, traffic, engineering, as well as building maintenance, parks and recreation, library services, planning, building inspections, administrative and legal services, affordable housing, and pay-as-you-go capital. The town's capital program is our plan for investment in capital projects for the next 15 years. The town's capital program is comprised of the following elements. Pay-as-you-go funded capital is an allocation that is part of the annual budget process to pay for small capital projects. Debt and grant funded capital, which is a multi-year project budgets. The town's financing plan, which is our plan for borrowing, as well as the town's debt fund, which is the designated fund with 8.8 cents of the property tax allocated for large capital projects. Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. The FY22 award is $418,300. The prior year's grant was $417,591. The initial public forum for CDBG was held on November 10th, 2021, and applications were due January 14th, and the CDBG Application Review Committee is currently reviewing those applications. As far as next steps in the process, April 6th will be a second public forum where staff will present the preliminary plan for comment. And May 4th is the recommended CDBG and home plans. Home program funds, the Home Investment Partnerships Program funds are allocated to the Orange County Home Consortium, which is made up of Chapel Hill, Carrboro, Hillsborough, as well as Orange County. Orange County Home Consortium deadline for completing applications is February 25th, 2022. Next steps in that process is Home Program Review Committee will review applications and make recommendations to local officials in April of 2022. Annual action plan will be submitted to HUD by May 17th, 2022. Housing Capital Funds Program, the amount of Housing Capital Grants Fund, the amount of Housing Capital Fund grant for FY23 is unknown at this time. Estimated award is based on the prior year, which was $935,260. Next steps in that process include a final recommendation that will be presented for council's consideration in April. Public transportation grants, estimated funding levels for FY23, federal grants in the amount of $2 million and state grants in the amount of $3 million. In addition, other federal planning funds are available through the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, and those amounts are currently unknown. Downtown Service District has a designated 6.4 cent tax rate, which is used for improvements to the downtown area. Estimated funding for FY23 is $397,000, and that's about a $6,000 increase over the current year. The town contracts with the Downtown Partnership to provide services in the Downtown Service District, and that's a one-year contract with the ability to renew that contract 4 additional times. Potential legislative proposals. Council will meet with the town's legislative delegation before the short session begins in April. Proposals from citizens will be considered at an upcoming council meeting. The budget calendar. So after tonight's public forum, the budget calendar includes a March 16th work session, an additional public forum on April 6th, followed by a work session on April 13th. The manager's recommended budget will be presented to council on May 4th. There will be a public hearing on the recommended budget May 18th, with 2 additional work sessions if needed on May 25th and June 1st, with the adoption of the FY 2022-23 budget on June 8th. Public input. In addition to the April 6th and May 11th public forums, the public can also make comments to the mayor and council by letter or email on the addresses on the screen. As far as public information, additional information is available on the town's website at townchapelhill.org/budget. So this concludes my presentation. Does the mayor or council have any questions? If not, council may open the public forum and refer comments to the manager for development of the recommended budget.
Thank you. Can you bring us back to full screen, please?
Sure.
Ms. Miller-Fouché, you had a question?
I do, thank you. Could you please tell me again how we receive public input for the budget? Is it just through the website and letters to council, or do we have any other process that we do in which?
So we have public forums like today where they can come and talk to us at a council meeting. And then there'll be several of those, and they can always talk at any council meeting between now and the adoption of the budget. And then emails, phone calls, those kinds of things. So there's lots of opportunities for input.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other clarifying questions? Okay, I know it's early in the budget process and we're all thinking of ideas of things we'd like to see, but we will be discussing more of this at our council retreat once we nail down a date. Mr. Parker.
Yeah, I just wanted to actually, Paris, Ms. Miller-Fouchy's question triggered something. So we have many means of getting input regarding the budget, but how do we communicate to the community besides this that we are taking input on the budget? How do folks know that they can give us input?
We've used our social media platforms to get the word out, and then also press releases as well about what's going on when it comes to the budget.
And then I'm on the radio every Thursday talking about it's time to speak up for what you want to see. So, okay. Do we have members of the public wishing to speak on this item this evening? I don't think we had anyone pre-register for this topic. Is there anyone out there who wishes to make a statement? Mr. Bench again.
Neil Bench.
That same thing.
There you go. Welcome again.
Hello. We had the same technical difficulty. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I would just chime in with a couple of thoughts. Maybe you heard them earlier, but one thing when both, again, as a citizen, I'm not speaking for any of the boards or whatever I'm on, but many of the groups that I speak with, I think this is perhaps the right targeted thought process in that outdoor activities have excelled in the past couple of years, and hopefully they will continue. Hopefully two things. Hopefully COVID will go away, and hopefully they'll still continue. They're certainly good for families and good for people, and they're, generally speaking, they are at no or low cost and affordable and open to everyone. One, of course, is our greenway system, which is good and in some cases great, but limited. And it would be excellent if the town would take on a mantra of the town of Chapel Hill should always be constructing the next mile of greenway. Even with that mindset, it would take many years to finish out our already master planned greenway system. The other item is, when somebody came up with the splash pad idea, which, I thought was a great idea, good fun for kids, open to everyone, no cost. At least that's what I heard. There wouldn't be a charge, and pretty simple as far as a construction item. And one of the thoughts was, well, it's expensive, maybe an extra that we don't think is appropriate, or I don't know what the correct wording is. But as the town is growing, the population is growing, and we see that with housing going up more and more and more. I think it is the right thing for the town to add outdoor recreational amenities, especially that are appropriate for kids. They'll be used. They're great. It allows for people from all over to interface with each other just without even any planning or thought, and that's a great thing to see people just run into each other and meet. So, and then relative to the budget, I think there's some funding that's been appropriated for the tennis court projects, both at Hargraves and Cedar Falls. There's a good chance that, of course, in any day and age, that won't allow for full funding of the projects. So if the council would do everything they can to fully fund that project and get those back up and running would be great. And any and all of these, as well as the town buildings and everything else, require regular maintenance. So some ability to continue funding both the deferred maintenance and then ongoing maintenance for park-related facilities, again, available to everyone. And generally speaking, not all of them, but generally speaking, low or no cost. to utilize them.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Good luck.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, then I bring it back to council for comments. Again, it's early in the budget process. You may have ideas that will vet out at the retreat, but you're welcome to share comments now too. Ms. Ryan?
Yeah, just a quick one, and to follow up on Mr. Bench's comments. Council member Miller Fushi and I had a great orientation today with Parks and Rec. We serve as the council liaisons to that group. And it was fascinating to see all that they do. And we've decided now they're called Parks, Recreation, and Community Wellbeing Division, because they help educate our students, they help take care of our seniors, they help people who are in trouble, they provide showers for homeless folks, it's just all kinds of things that they do in addition to ball fields and that. So I think that it's money that's really well spent, and that we need to recognize just the breadth of the services that they provide. And so I'm hoping we can, just looking at the preliminary numbers here, hoping we can do a little better in that pot of money.
Right. Ms. Miller Fushi?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I know that we do a lot in publicizing and having avenues for input. I think it would also be beneficial for community members to have, for us to be able to go into the community and have more engagement around our budget and education. A lot of community members don't understand this process. And so I think it would be wonderful to, have opportunities to engage community in those ways and reaching out to our community stakeholders to reach folks. So just wanted to make that comment and put that in folks' ear. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Berry?
I'd like to add on to that, that if we can go into the communities as we're already there for other discussions and we can share this, I think we can maximize our presence in the community when we're meeting for others, that we share other ways that people can contribute. And I do know that a staff member, and I can't think of her name, was at the library when I went to pick up a hold I had. I'm signing people up for the People's Academy and even more things. So I really appreciate that effort, and I think that we can do even more. So thank you.
Right, Ms. Stegman?
Yeah, I'd just like to can renew the conversation. I think I remember after the when we were focused on the police budget, we had a lot of angry commenters because the way we displayed the budget made it look like we were spending, very small amount on affordable housing, more than we're spending on police. And I understand why. It's how we set it up, but to the public, it was not easy to understand how we are using funds. And I know at that time we had some discussion about the possibility of coming up with another way to show the budget, and even doing some kind of, short webinar for the public, or in person, but probably now webinar, just a brief budget 101 and break it down in a way that is not about, it's this department, but it's actually showing, across departments, but this much is spent on affordable housing, this much is spent on fire, just have it a little more accessible. And I know we've been way too busy to focus on that, but I'm wondering if that's something we can get back to for this budget season. I think that'd be really helpful for the public.
Great, thank you. Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Stegman, and that was, I think, something we talked about for the retreat as well, is being able to see what we spend on our various priority areas. So I think it would be beneficial for the public, but also for us as council members to really understand how we spend our money and kind of the totality of it and the different places that it comes from. So I think that's a really important point. I wanted to also thank Mr. Bench for his comments. I think they're important. I think we really do need to, coming out of an amazing 2 years, which I think the video at the beginning of our meeting showed the amount that that everyone has done, and it's been amazing. I think we need to bring some focus to some of the areas that we haven't been able to invest in as much, including Parks and Rec. And I will say that I'm somebody who's championed the splash pad for a long time, not because, I mean, my kids will probably be grown out of it by the time we ever saw it, and that is fine with me. But I think it's a really important thing that we also started with the previous council, and the previous council unanimously asked the staff to move forward and to figure out what we were going to do, and to do something that I think is not about being able to belong to a country club, or I think, as Mr. Bench stated very well, that it's about bringing community together. So I would really like to see us, not just for the splash pad, but think about what are the public amenities that also support our neighborhoods and support us being able to get the different types of housing that we know we need, because often when developers are paying for all of the amenities internally, it not only divides up our community, but it raises the cost of housing. So we're going to pay for it one way or the other. So we might as well make it with everyone together. But I look forward to our budget conversations as we move on.
Okay. Mr. Parker, then Mr. Searing.
Yeah, and I'd actually like to put in a plug for something that we, on the one hand, pride ourselves in a great deal, but actually spend almost no money on, which is the cultural arts. I mean, we, for a town that considers itself rich in culture, we tend to rely on the university and others to provide it. The town provides minimal support, the Kids Zoo and the Art Center. And after that, there's, some money goes through the library, but other than that, we really don't spend, I believe, for the kind of town that we are or say that we want to be. So I would really like to see what can be done to do more for the cultural arts community, and particularly over these last 2 years, we know that artists and the arts community has really struggled. And we also know how important arts and the arts community has been to helping people cope with the isolation and all the problems we've had with COVID. So I think that's another area. I'm not, and given how little we do spend, it shouldn't be hard to make a big percentage jump. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Searing.
I would just like to ask, I know a couple months ago, the Parks and Rec Committee gave to all of us a document that included their priority projects for the $12 million kind of backlog that Parks and Rec has. And those projects included things like, you're not going to get away from the budget without me mentioning the skate park. So I'm going to mention the skate park, redo the skate park, mention redoing those turf fields, improvements at Hargraves and at Ephesus Park, and a number of other things. I'd just like to make sure that that document is included in the discussions going forward, and the staff and all of us have it as we move forward, because I agree we need to fund some of these things. So thank you.
Okay. Ms. Berry, did you have your hand up?
I did. Thank you so much, Mayor. Councilmember Parker, thank you for bringing up the cultural arts, because there was a meeting tonight and they actually expressed for the second time in a row distress at not having money from the percent for art, not fully understanding how that is funded. And that is something I want to address with the town manager, but I would like for us to focus on that. And we do have existing needs that are not being met. And I want to make sure that as we're going through this budget process, that we're looking at what is outstanding, what is in disrepair. Councilmember Searing shared pictures of the skate park. Some of that was able to be addressed. There are other needs around this town that are in major need of attention and investment. So I'd like for us to really be mindful of that, of what we already have, as we consider what we will add, because as we add, we'll need to continue to add to the maintenance. Thank you.
Okay, I'll wrap us up then. Come at a different Parks and Rec, building on what Ms. Berry said. This is our operating budget. We do have a CIP budget, but it's not large in the operating budget. We do have ARPA monies we'll be talking about. We need to increase our Parks and Rec maintenance staff. There is no way for them to take care and keep these facilities in good working order if they don't have the staff to do so. So I'd like to see an emphasis on looking at how we get back up. We dropped staffing levels, not specifically during COVID, it just seemed to happen. And we need to look at putting those positions back in so that we can maintain what we have. And if we add anything new, that we can maintain that. Otherwise, it's just not a very good investment of dollars if we can't maintain new things that are brought on. So, okay, again, this is the first part of the budget process. It'll be going on all the way through June 8th, as you saw, and there'll be many opportunities. I liked the webinar idea of talking about the budget. Maybe there should be a public information session at some point, but I think there's some opportunities to help people understand. As you will learn, it is a complicated budget because of all the different pots of money and the way we receive money and the guidelines of which we're to allocate money. So there are some regulations that we have to follow and timings that work. North Carolina legislature requires that we pass a budget before the end of June. All cities and towns are required to do so, counties as well. They don't have to pass one by then, but we have to pass one by then. And it did spark my memory. We're going to need a legislative delegate from our council to represent us at the league voting. You would have to miss, I think, one of our own meetings in March in order to participate. But if you are interested, you're welcome to email me about doing that job. Okay, so that brought up. I'm sorry I didn't look. Do we need to transmit comments or what do we need to do here?
Yeah, Mayor, we would need to just transmit the comments to the council.
Okay. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Then moved by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Berry. Does staff feel like they heard, were there any questions from what they heard back from council?
No questions. Mayor, I would say that both you and Mr. Bench were right about Cedar Falls and the athletic turfs there. Organizations do pay money to use those fields, but there are open play times as well.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much money we've collected for using those fields because they're open more often since they're artificial. There's less rain dates and things. But it'd be interesting.
Prior to the pandemic, it was a little over $200,000 that we were getting in revenue on an annual basis.
Wow.
I believe that's what we heard from Mr. Fleischman. If that's not correct, we'll clarify that.
I know there's other expenses associated with that field as well, but I'm hoping we're going to hear that the Cedar Falls park lights are going to be replaced with the grant we got from Orange County. I know it's in the works that we're going to replace the lights to be LEDs, which will save us money in operating that park. So that would be and reduce our carbon footprint. All right, I'm sorry. It was moved by Ms. Anderson and seconded by Ms. Berry. Sorry, thank you. A roll call vote then, please. Ms. Stegman.
Aye.
Ms. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen.
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fouché.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Ryan.
Aye.
Mr. Searing.
Aye.
And Mayor says aye as well. Thank you very much. Moving right along, y'all are doing well. We have our climate action and response plan implementation update. We're all very excited to hear this. So, and welcome, Brennan. We're glad to have you with us. Dressed up very nicely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to provide you all an update on the climate action implementation plan. And let's see, so I have an ambitious 35 slides for you this evening, but I do plan to move quickly. So I'll be hopefully through in about 15 minutes. The recommendation associated with this presentation is that you receive this information and provide staff guidance as it's needed. So we'll just do a very brief recap to just set the context for this update. We'll dive into the metrics that were in the plan, the available data that's there, progress to date, and I'll share a little bit about our plans to move a lot of these updates and implementation, data on implementation online to a hub site, and then we'll revisit the recommendation at the end. So,
we can't see your slides. I don't know if you have any. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you so much for interrupting me. I am not sharing my screen.
Right.
I got excited. My apologies. Here we go. Are you all seeing that now?
Excited to see it. So we're on the same page. We're all excited. Yes, it looks great.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Well, we can start with this one. So this is a diagram you've seen before that John has presented, and we're now over here on the right side with our first quarterly climate action report, covering the metrics that are found in the plan. Since April of 21, when the council adopted the climate action and response plan, you've also funded a climate action fund to help carry that forward. In September, John came back with a detailed implementation plan for the next 2 years to move towards the targets that are set in that plan. One other piece, as I'm coming on and learning about this plan, it's been great to see climate equity as a cross-cutting theme within the plan and within our work. As we implement the actions in the plan, we are asking ourselves who will be most impacted by climate change, by the action, and who will benefit most directly by the investment potentially that's being made. So projects like the community tree planting and survey are really an ideal blend of community input and staff expertise, sort of working together to guide that implementation and push that forward. There's other exciting equity-informed projects going on. For example, the extreme heat analysis. It's one element of just identifying who around town might be bearing the brunt already of climate change. It's going to help us target our efforts and our investments going forward. We are working on an equity-informed analysis that's going to help us locate future electric vehicle charging stations. And John and I know that the two of us, also need help in this effort, making sure we're asking the right questions and getting the right engagement. And so we're working with the Equity Lab and Shanika Weeks pretty closely to do that. So the process that we're using to regularly ask that question and make sure that equity is guiding the prioritization of these actions. Just a simple diagram here. Essentially, we have 10 projects that haven't yet been completed that are ready for review in the Equity Lab. And those are 10 of the priority actions that come from the 97 overall actions within the implementation plan that was adopted. And so, 24 additional priority actions are being, are in development. We're pulling together the data, the partners, the resources to make sure they're ready to go in to review there. Another cross-cutting theme before we jump into the indicators is urgency. Definitely saw that right up front in the plan, and it's great. I mean, I think the next 8 years, getting to all of the targets that start in 2030, they're going to be exciting years. I know it's going to take more than electric vehicles to get there, but electric vehicles sort of lend themselves well to an illustration of the kind of annual investment that's going to be required. So, in our fleet right now, we have 26 electric vehicles either in use or are on order, and more plans in the works. We're actively working with fleet. With our fleet department to create an accelerated EV adoption plan. It's one of the actions in the implementation plan, and so we'll be coming back with some more information for you on how we can meet that 2030 goal of having 50% of our fleet running on electricity. When we're talking about the town overall, in parallel, there's also a market transformation that's happening, moving vehicles towards electrification. We haven't found a good data source for town-specific electric vehicle registrations, but there is a great data source for the county. And so while we have the targets set in the plan, I've just illustrated on the county level, if those were proportionally sort of scaled up to the county level, the kinds of investment that would be needed by our broader community each year for the next 8 years. Well, very good. Jumping into the indicators, there are 15 key indicators in the adopted plan. And as we choose the data that's going to help us see where we are on those indicators, we're looking for data that's reliable, from a reliable source. It's as current as possible, specific to the town of Chapel Hill, and the decisions that we have control over whenever possible. And ideally automatic. So when new data comes in, it's less work to update and then transparently communicate that to our residents. And we can spend more time doing the implementation. So that's the ideal scenario for that. Some of that external data is only updated once a year. Some of the data that's tied to our greenhouse gas emissions inventory, it may be multiple years before we can get new data there. Program performance indicators, however, are going to be able to be updated continuously. And that's more looking at the input that we're putting into it, the effort that's going into it. So as I mentioned, there's 97 actions in total, 34 priority actions, and we're going to be tracking them separately so y'all can see the relative amount of effort that we're putting towards the priority actions. In order to support this work, there are grant opportunities that we're aiming to take advantage of. We've applied for close to $400,000 in additional resources already since I've come on board. And we just found out earlier today that one of those is we've been approved on that. So more information on that later, but it's exciting times. Yeah. So this should look familiar. From the Climate Action and Response Plan, we have 4 different action areas. And under each of these, we have key indicators. And so I'll walk through each of those briefly. So within buildings and energy, again, this is close to 70% of the total greenhouse gas emissions picture for the town of Chapel Hill. These are some of the key indicators that are in the adopted plan. So a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, again, that's one that's going to be done. We'll have new numbers after we do another comprehensive greenhouse gas emissions inventory update. Excuse me, that's a mouthful there. But we also have other indicators here, which there's several different ways of measuring. So as we look at the percent of clean renewable energy in Chapel Hill, we can look at, we have a number directly from Duke Energy Carolinas, our utility electrical provider, who also generates all of the electricity that is distributed through Piedmont Electric Membership Co-op. So for those sections of town that are served by Piedmont, the generation is still coming from Duke Energy. So 4% is a figure that applies across the town. We can also look at where the solar installations are and how many there are. And we're tracking through several different databases the number of certified green buildings. While this map is up, we just wanted to point out the relative influence of some of these larger utility scale installations. So just these 5 that are circled here account for 20 of the overall 25.6 megawatts in all of Orange County. So we are actively pursuing what options we have to invest in utility scale solar. All right. To round out each one of these 4 activity areas, we wanted to give you some more specific projects that are being supported by the Climate Action Fund. And so here are 4 examples. This isn't the entire list of projects, but just some examples to speak to and give you a sense for. 3 different lighting projects. The mayor has already mentioned the lighting upgrade at Cedar Falls Park, which is primarily supported by a grant. 2 other projects supported by Duke Energy Small Business Saver Incentives. and those incentives are a significant portion of the total costs, leading to pretty good return on investment, pretty short returns on investment for those projects. At the bottom here, just a little preview, looking forward to next year. We're working on a regional Solarize campaign to further incentivize the installation of solar energy, as well as a low and moderate income home energy upgrade program. All right, so we can move into transportation and land use. And our first indicator is just an overall sense of the vehicle travel. And this picture has gotten a little bit extra exciting during the pandemic. We've had big swings in vehicle travel as we've all experienced. We found this Carolina tracker as it is measuring cell phone, cell phone direction change requests over the time as a proxy for vehicle travel. But as you can see, we're getting back to the pre-pandemic levels of travel. And so we're able to, once again, I think, lean on standard counts from NCDOT for our town. And that number is in your report. When we're talking about bicycle and pedestrian travel, we're also talking about not just the counts of the number of bikes that are out there, but the amount of infrastructure that we have. Bike lanes, the number of miles of bike lanes was specifically indicated in the report. And there are 32 miles of bike lanes in just the town of Chapel Hill. But there are also other various kinds of bicycle infrastructure leading to close to 70 miles if you take them all into account. They all do different things, obviously, but we are tracking all of those in parallel. The census has good historical data on the use of bicycle and pedestrian modes to commute to work. And so here's the trends over time there. It's relatively stable overall. And here's a short list of projects, again, supported in part by the Climate Action Fund. Installing 2 charging stations at Town Hall. This is one of the actions that's actually been completed. Also grant supported. Charting Our Future Phase 2 is sort of the broad heading for the TOD and other types of planning, housing strategies, small area planning, all that's going into the code rewrite. The Climate Action Fund is supporting a piece of that, as well as a $745,000 FTA grant. I've listed other grants here just to show. Some of them are still listed as TBD, depending on the level at which the grant, if it's awarded, the level at which it's funded may change how much the Climate Action Fund is leaned on. So, excuse me. All right, moving quickly now through wastewater and natural resources. It looks like a lot, but it's all things that you are very familiar with. Reduction in waste, the amount of canopy and tree cover. I know it's been a priority in Chapel Hill for a long time to think about tree canopy, and it's a point of pride for the town. There's an image that was taken from an analysis that our GIS staff conducted using really detailed LiDAR satellite imagery. And this allows us to really get a great baseline on not just canopy coverage, but also height and density. This is from 2015. The Climate Action Fund is supporting a subscription to a service called NearMap, which is going to provide much more regular flyovers. And so we should be able to have be able to keep a much closer eye on the tree canopy across town. The fund is also within this area going to be funding water alert sensors. And so the intention is to study key locations where a creek may that is liable to flood. We might be able to install an early warning system. And so those sensors themselves are relatively inexpensive, especially in comparison to the the costs that they may help our vulnerable communities avoid. So we're excited about this project. Thinking about resiliency goes sort of hand in hand with the water resources items. These two items here are a little bit more conceptual, and so we're figuring out ways to measure those. They don't lend themselves quite as well to some of the harder numbers, but we're thinking that the town's biannual community survey may be a good way to measure things like community cohesion. So we're looking towards that. We're looking at income as a key measure of household resilience. Certainly overall, incomes in Chapel Hill and this area compare well across the triangle and across the state. We're going to be drilling down a little bit further into making sure that we're thinking about not just the broader picture of income, but income for more vulnerable portions of our community as a measure of that key household resilience factor. And this, again, I can't say enough about our GIS team. They just do such great work. They were able to pull together an assessment of how many people are living within 0.4 miles of a fixed Chapel Hill transit line. And that's 74%. And that's not including all of the other services that Chapel Hill Transit provides. We are working now on that next step to include employment density so we can get a sense for accessibility of jobs in town. So the LUMO Rewrite Green Infrastructure Study is getting some of the climate action funding, as well as the ArcGIS Urban Hub, the dashboard website I referred to at the very beginning. And I'm excited to show you another community's hub, just some quick images here from Burlington, Vermont. Their climate action plan has been put on this kind of hub. You can click through their action areas into a detailed sort of summary and status report on the actions that they're taking. We think we can sort of put a little bit more into this. Their hub site is pretty basic, but I think some of these maps, we might be able to make them more interactive. People might be able to sort of think broadly about their own resiliency and their own climate change impacts, and see and ideally have this hub be more of a two-way street, so that there's really interesting engagement tools that are able to be hosted on one of these ArcGIS hub sites, and we're excited to show you that as we move forward. All right, so we're back to the recommendation. I'd love to hear any questions or comments that you have at this point.
Thank you, Brennan. Can you bring us back to full screen, please? Mr. Parker, you had a question?
I did. I do. So two things. First of all, thank you for this. I mean, and I have to apologize. There's an enormous amount of information there, and I've only begun to feels like sort of a pig through a python at this point. So I'm just trying to get to digest it. But a couple of things, one I sort of asked in some of the questions I submitted is how are we really, there's a range of projects, and some, one of them costs $9,000, one of them costs $1 million. How are we trying to make sense of how we spend the money? I mean, some of it I assume is opportunistic. If somebody offers us a grant, we take it and use it. But, can we develop some like ratios or statistics that would tell us, that so that when we look at a range of projects, we could say this one is saving us, it costs us $1 per ton of greenhouse gas emissions for this project and $5. And I'm just making nonsense up, but I think you get the point that I'm making. But some way that we can compare one project with another project to see which is really giving us the most bang for our buck, which is the most cost effective, which is the most cost efficient. So, if you can bring some of that to bear, rather than just sort of telling us we're doing this project, this is what it costs. The other thing was just a small point, but I think, in many of your indicators, I think you might be able to go a little deeper and get more, and number one, get information that's more Chapel Hill specific, but also perhaps things we can do something about. So for example, in the neighborhood resiliency, you talk about, median income for Chapel Hill, which is what it is. And I'm pretty sure there's not, a lot that the town government can do to directly affect that. But for example, if in addition to that, we looked at the rate of insurance coverages in the town and look to see, do our residents have enough coverage to allow them to recover from a flood or some other kind of storm? And then in the case where we discover that either overall or there are specific subpopulations who are underinsured, maybe the town can then work to help folks get the insurance they need to be able to recover. Because, again, median income is just that. So half of our town is below that, and you can immediately assume that a good proportion of those folks are going to have a hard time, and it's not something we can help them with. So if we can think more about things that we can control and then actually do something about, because as I said, there's not a thing theoretically we could, but there's not much we can do about median income and a lot of other things. But I think there are some things that we could do about if we thought more deeply and got a little bit more creative about it.
Thank you, Sarah. I think those are excellent examples.
Other questions? I'll ask one, and in case you get ready. I've been very determined that we start putting solar on our own town facility roofs. I would like us to chart that, because we have some roof replacement projects coming up in the next 3 to 7 years, and we need to have monies to put the solar on the roof. There's no point in putting solar on if we're replacing the roof in 3 years. So I'd like for us to be able to track that, because we have some significant buildings out there that it would make a huge difference with our transit building, our public works building, and we've talked about our parking deck. So I'd like to see those projects listed in the same kind of chart that you've shown of when we project that we need to do those buildings. And I'd be very interested in what you think we could do with a community solar large scale project by actually purchasing land in the county. I don't think there's going to be land we could afford in Chapel Hill to do this. So I'd like to know more about doing solar on our own roofs and those kinds of projects, if possible. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah. I just wanted to say I'm actively working with a student in the Department of City and Regional Planning. Their master's project is to help interview solar industry experts, policy experts within North Carolina to fully understand the solar landscape for municipal governments. And so on that utility scale side, where we have a little bit of additional assistance and expertise, they hope to deliver for us an early draft soon and finish up their work this spring. So I'm excited about that, but happy to work with our facility maintenance team to look at the capital replacement plan for all the roofs and start to program in where it may make sense to put solar PV. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Miller-Fishy?
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question about grants and where we get grants and how readily available they are, just for my information and education. Thanks.
Brennan or John, are you going to answer the question?
I might need a little clarification, excuse me. So
she wants to know where we get grants from and how readily available they are for environmental.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I missed that. So yes, I think there have been some longstanding grants from the state, from the Clean Energy Technology Center. 10 years ago, there were a lot more grants for buildings and solar and energy efficiency projects. Those seem to have been replaced by a little bit more of a focus on electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging stations, other alternative fuels. Some of those are still around. I think what we're looking for now is a lot of the federal grants that are coming online, specifically for electric vehicle charging stations, but also other kinds of resilience type investments. The climate action covers a broad umbrella. As you see, I tried to speak quickly and cover it all. So there are grants that we continue to learn about. John and I are also part of the Southeast Sustainability Directors Network, and they have someone whose job it is to track and report on us, provide us a weekly report on possible grant opportunities. So we're in touch with a lot of the new opportunities that are coming on.
Great, thank you. That was helpful.
And I would just quickly add that this is probably the best, this particular environment is the best that we've seen in a long while in terms of grant opportunities. It was really good about 12 years ago, and then it kind of dried up for a while, and now it's coming back. So it's exciting to see a lot of good opportunities.
Ms. Berry?
Thanks, trying to get to that microphone. Are you all working with the housing nonprofits? Because I know when I was with Community Home Trust, they were looking at funding opportunities. Not that you should fund that. Well, anyway, they are always looking for resources as to how they can outfit their homes. And I imagine that the other housing nonprofits are as well. So that's my first question. And then my second question goes back to something that Councilmember Stegman, Mayor Pro Tem, shared. I also know of an individual who has expressed a desire to support the town in its climate action efforts through financial contributions. And this person doesn't even live in our town. They live in an adjacent community, but they believe in it. So now that we're discussing this, how could I put that person in touch with someone? This is a question from a newbie.
I would be glad to, I could reach out to you, Councilmember Berry, and we could make that connection offline after the meeting.
And I'll jump in as a response to your first question about our housing nonprofit partners. John and I had a good, productive meeting with our own town staff, talking about housing and community development and the various actions that are already in the implementation plan that are relevant to increasing energy efficiency of affordable housing, both within our own public housing, but also potentially setting up a grant program in this upcoming year so that nonprofit home service providers, affordable housing providers can access more funds to accelerate and expand their work in helping lower moderate income families save energy on their electric bills. So with the idea that your electric bill, your water bill is part of monthly affordability, and it's tied into climate action, there's a really good opportunity there to help to use this money to both save greenhouse gas emissions and help the people who need it the most. So it's definitely a priority that we're tracking, and I'll be following up with the Home Preservation Coalition, who I already know from my work in Orange County, to figure out if there are gaps, where they are, and how best to and most efficiently to use this funding to help extend their work.
Thank you. That's exciting.
Okay, any more questions before we hear from the public? And we'll come back for comments. All right, are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Ms. Stegman, do you see anybody with a raised hand?
No, nobody.
All right. Well, we will bring it back then for council comments, please. Give us a lot of information. I know we're all digesting all of it. Ms. Ryan.
Yeah, so it's an amazing amount of work. So thank you for doing that. And I don't know, John, earlier, a few months ago, you came to us with presentations where you had lots and lots of tables. And maybe it's just the way my mind worked. I found those really clear and easy to understand. So I don't know how this information can tie in with that, but I found those easier to understand than this kind of breakdown. So just FYI, but it's lots and lots of numbers. So, but thank you for all the hard work and all the amazing connections that you're doing. Anywhere in this is, I know, kind of a little point, but we've got a petition on this for with council. Is there any talk about transitioning to electric landscape maintenance equipment in town where we can? I know that may sometimes be not quite as feasible, but some of those small engines are really bad polluters.
That is something we've been talking about with the Public Works team. It's unclear at this point whether, to your point, Councilmember Ryan, whether it's got a commercial viability at our scale of use, but I can tell you that we've been having those conversations over the last 2 months. And we've also been noticing that there are states that are starting to change their policy on things like this. So I think our next step is to try and touch base with some local governments who may be leading the charge and find out how it is they're planning to meet those policy changes.
That would be great. And my last comment is, I see that we've got 2 categories of expenses here in the report that are gonna, for projects that will feed into the LUMO, which I think is great. I mean, the LUMO should be a sustainability document at its very heart. And it looks like almost $60,000. Our LUMO budget is enormous. So I hate taking money from sustainability, which is kind of one of our chief goals. And so if there's any way that maybe we could fold some of this work into the existing consultants' work, or figure that out and give you guys back some money for implementation and other things, I would be in favor of doing that. Thank you.
Sure, and I think that's something we can definitely explore. We're still trying to refine how much support would be needed to tackle some of those specific areas, and I think we'll learn the answer to that probably by the next time we come back to it.
No, I mean, it's important work, and I'm glad that we're doing it. It's just, again, I want you guys to have all the money that you can have available. So thanks for all your hard work, and welcome, Brennan.
Ms. Stegman.
Yeah, thank you, John and Brennan, for a really thorough presentation. It's really great to see. I just wanted to comment on the, I know you reviewed all the focus areas, and that you noted that the transportation focus area involves both kind of EV transition, that kind of thing, but also a lot of other areas, but that our activities this fiscal year really were all focused on cars, on EV transition, that kind of thing, which is something we want to do for sure. But I would love to see more of a focus moving forward and what we prioritize, not cars. The ways that we are incentivizing biking and walking, and and I know we're talking about that in a lot of other forums and topics. So we are, I'm happy that tonight we voted to put more money into that, and into bike ped safety, and but just if you could maybe in planning for this next quarter, next year, whatever the next phase is, really look at how can we emphasize non-car goals with the next kind of focus areas for transit and transportation. Thanks.
Ms. Anderson, did you ever hand up?
Yeah, thank you for a really thorough presentation. It shows a huge body of work. So it's really exciting. I remember when we were talking about this conceptually and we wanted all these metrics and we wanted to track and we wanted to do all this stuff, and it's all now in front of us. So it's really, really exciting to see that. So a huge thank you. And I think I would also love to see if we could do any LUMO studies with the current LUMO budget. I agree that it's a really large budget, and hopefully I would just like to see us start really, putting any money we can into your implementation plans. I had one other thing to say, but I lost it. So sorry, I'm already apparently tired, but if I remember it, maybe Pam will let me talk again. Thanks.
All right, other council members? Okay, I'll wrap up by saying I agree with a lot of the comments said tonight, and it is exciting. You've taken it from this sort of gelatinous stage to more formed, and we're excited. There's real tasks on the list to do. It's moving, maybe not as quickly as we hoped with the whole world moving towards climate action, but there's opportunities now we didn't have before, which is exciting from the federal government. I'm not sure we're going to get opportunities from the state government. I know that Duke Energy is trying to put more into the climate resilience as well, and those things going on. I didn't know if you were tracking tree plantings. I know we're doing a lot more of those as well. It's kind of hard to track because so many get wiped out on a new construction project that I'm not sure we plant enough back, but we are trying to make a difference, especially in some of the neighborhoods that didn't have those opportunities to reduce heat index, to improve air quality. And there's just so many good things about trees. So I know that we're planting some every year. I think it's good to show it here, what we're doing, just to improve sense of community as well. But I applaud you on getting, I know John was thrilled to bring Brennan on to have some extra help and getting this done. It sounds like he hit the ground running, and that's wonderful. So we're excited. So thank you. Was there anything unclear that staff needed to ask? So we look forward to these updates. We look forward to the progress, and we're excited to do this work. It's one of our highest priorities. Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have to transmit comments? Or as we just say, we're done.
Oh, yeah, I think it's okay. Thank you.
I never know whether transmitting comments or just saying thank you.
We took notes, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. That brings us up to the concept plan review of the flats, 607 to 617 MLK Jr. Boulevard and 121 Stinson Street. Welcome,
Yes,
Judy.
good evening. Give me just 1 second to get this started. And I hope you're seeing that in the full screen that you should be seeing it.
Yes, we are.
Perfect. So I have a very brief presentation, and I'm going to go through this very quickly. The applicant is here and we'll be going into detail. So this is the concept plan for the flats. Just to give you a little bit of background on this, it's located on Martin Luther King. Town Hall is just to the south of the page here. East Longview is just to the north where the traffic light is now on Martin Luther King. And across the street, you can see where the Union and the Lark are on the opposite side of the street. So it's about, I think, 4 properties and probably about 4 acres in site in total, sorry. And so if I can get my page to change. So our standard, looking for you to transmit comments to the applicant. And as we share these slides on every concept plan, I'm going to go through them quickly. As you know, we don't provide a staff review of concept plans, and we're looking for the applicant to provide a rough sketch to you. Also, following the concept plan, there's a possibility of 3 steps forward, and we encourage the applicant to consider speaking with you this evening if they, typically this would be a conditional zoning. If they choose something different, like a development agreement, that would be something that would be done in conjunction with the town council. Briefly, I want to touch on this project. So the project was before you, I think it was last spring, as a slightly different model, I think it was a little bit larger project, a little bit, few more beds, that sort of thing. You can see on the screen here, they are showing the previous envelope. They have stepped down the building slightly in height. The applicant will, I believe, walk you through that. So the proposal before you tonight is about 200 units and with 5 to 570 beds. I want to show you the comments that we heard from their previous plan. So we did not bring this application that's before you tonight, which is basically this cut section, to our Community Design Commission or our Housing Advisory Board, any of those boards. They went through the process last year and are back just before you this evening to share feedback with you from what they heard from you and the advisory boards from last year. So the comments on here are from last year. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about those because I believe they are will be sharing how they have addressed some of those comments. But focusing just for a second on the future land use map, this is, you can see the star right here on the map. It's in our South MLK Boulevard in sub-area C with the multifamily residential, commercial office as predominant uses in this area, looking at a 4-story at the front setback line, so along the Martin Luther King, up to 8 stories, but looking obviously concerned about that transition to neighborhoods adjoining. And that concludes my presentation, and looking for a transmission of comments to the applicant. And I believe Bruce Ballantyne is here with the applicant to provide more details.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. So thank you, and thank you for that presentation, Judy, and thank you, Mayor Heminger and Town Council members. We're pleased to be here tonight. I'd like to introduce 4 of our team members. Russ Greer is our applicant. His company is Progressive Capital Group of Winter Park, Florida. And Sam Newman is the Vice President of Development for American Campus Communities of Austin, Texas. They are the largest publicly held developer operator of student housing in the country. Our project architect is Jeff Davis of J. Davis Architects in Raleigh. And our project engineer is George Richley of Ballantyne Associates in Chapel Hill.
All the way up to the right. Okay.
So in our previous concept review meeting with Town Council back in March of last year, as Judy mentioned, there were a number of council comments. Can you see the screen that's in front of you now?
We cannot.
No, you're not sharing screen.
Left the meeting. So go up and minimize. Up all the way up to the right.
Bruce, I can share it if you'd like, if that's easier.
All right, let's do that, if you would, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
Oops, sorry.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Judy. Can you see my cursor? No?
Yes, we can.
So there were 6 points that the council made at our previous meeting that they wanted us to address before we came back. Height, mass, density, parking, the relationship with the neighbors, and the traffic to the Isley Stinson neighborhood. And those comments are shown on each of these graphics, in this case, to the upper left. What you're looking at is the previous plan. And what I want to point out with this plan are several points that we have addressed and changed as we take a look at the next slide. The first is on the left-hand side of this view is a wrapped parking deck, 5- and 6-story deck. And on the north side or the upper side of the screen, you can see that this plan showed a driveway connection between this parking deck and the Isley Stinson neighborhood. And the last thing is the entire frontage of MLK. The building is approximately 400 linear feet of frontage, and we were asked to take a look at that and try to reduce that mass and that length of frontage. So Judy, if you'll go to the next slide, which is our proposal, and you'll notice that in this case, we've made several significant changes. The first is we've opened up the left-hand side of the building and created an open courtyard that views MLK, so that now the building is not one 400-foot long facade. It's broken up, a much more pleasing appearance from the front elevation. The next thing to point out is we have eliminated the drive connection from the parking deck in the building to the Isley Stinson neighborhood. And the access now into the parking structure is on the north of the right-hand side of this view, off of MLK, and two entrances. By the way, the deck has been, instead of a wrap deck, 5 or 6 stories, we have followed your suggestion, and we have underground parking on 2 levels of parking under the building. 2 levels under the pool courtyard on the right-hand side of this view, and 1 level under the open courtyard left-hand side of this view. So in this image, you'll notice we've also pulled the building back. One of the concerns of council was that we address our relationship to our adjoining neighbors. And so on the right-hand side, which is the north side of this building, you'll see a heavy red line that indicates the former footprint of the building, which had a 35-foot setback. And we have pulled that back to 70 feet. And so we doubled the setback on the north end side. On the back side of the building, on the left-hand side, Judy, you'll see another dashed red line, which indicates the former location of the building. That had a 45-foot setback from the property line. And now we've increased that to a total of 75 feet. Let's now take a look at the height of the building by going to the next image. This is a section through the pool and courtyard, and the MLK is shown on the left-hand side, and the future land use map recommended that the building height at the building line on MLK, the building height on all the future buildings on MLK be a maximum of 4 stories high before stepping back and then going up. I believe the flume allows a maximum height of 8 stories. In this case, we have a 4-story facade, stepping back with another story and then stepping back to 1 more. On the other side, the right-hand side of this image, this is facing Isley Stinson. And we originally had a 4-story elevation at the building line. There was no requirement in the flume to have a certain building height, but at your suggestion at our last meeting, we have lowered that to 2 stories at the building line. Then we step back and go up 2 more, and then step back and go up 1 more. This image shows how the parking is underneath the pool courtyard, and that white area in the middle of this image is all open to the sky. Let's take a look now at the very next slide, which is a section through the open courtyard. And so what this shows, again, MLK is on the left and Isley Stinson on the right. You can see how this open courtyard is completely open to the view from MLK. And on the right-hand side is the back side of that courtyard, which is actually 4 stories above the ground level, which is behind the building. One of those levels is actually below grade. So what is crosshatched is the reduction in the height that we've accomplished by making these changes. So we're quite a bit lower, quite a bit more pulled back from the neighbors. And Judy, if you will go back to the very first, to our new image, please, the second slide. So there's a couple of other things on this plan. We have retained the pedestrian connection on the left-hand side of this image that was in the previous plan, and that was something that the council and the advisory boards like to see. What this image does not show, but it will be included in our application when it's submitted, is another pedestrian connection on the north or the right-hand side. That was included in the original original application, and it will also be included in our final application. So to the rear, or to the Isley Stinson side, you'll see that the only traffic that we have back there, this is where trash and mail will be picked up and delivered. And we're actually looking at package delivery, possibly not being from the rear, but being from the access drive on the northern side of the building, so that trying to eliminate as much traffic on Isley Stinson as we can. So what we have done, in summary, we have reduced the height of the building. We now meet the flumes requirements of 4 stories or more along MLK. We've reduced the mass of the building by changing from a wrap deck to an open courtyard, and we've gone to underground parking. We've reduced the density. We've reduced the number of beds by 10 to 15%. We've reduced the parking by over 100 parking spaces, and we have improved our building orientation to our neighbors by increasing the setbacks on the north and on the southwest. To the south is just an existing parking lot, so we're retaining that 35-foot setback there. And we have eliminated our drive connection between MLK through this building parking structure to Isley Stinson. There is no more connection there. What you see on this image in front of you to the rear of the building, or to the north, or the top of the page, is where it says grass pavers. That's actually a fire lane, and that was worked out in conjunction with your fire marshal, and he has approved a concept for this project. So we have also discussed this, our plan with Brian Peterson. He saw the first plan, and in your packet from last year, I'm not sure if it's in your packet now or not, but in your packet last year, there was a report from Brian. He also, as you did, he had some issues with the height and the mass. And after Jeff Davis made these changes, he met with Brian again, and Brian was pleased with these changes, that we had addressed all of them. The last aspect I wanted to speak to is the affordable housing proposal. And in our minds, there are 4 options here. The first one is a payment in lieu that the council for some time now has not accepted. So that one is off the table. The other is, at our last meeting, there was some comment made about building on site. We discussed this at the town's housing advisory board last year, and they agreed with us that putting families in what is basically a university student dormitory is not the best setting for families, and we don't recommend that. At the last meeting, we had several council members suggested that this applicant fund some of the habitat houses in the Weaver's Grove community that's under construction now. I personally think that's a good idea. If that's something this council would like us to investigate, we will certainly do so. And when we come back with our application for conditional zoning, we will address that in detail. The fourth option is one that we discussed at the last meeting. Russ Greer, in a previous career, his business was to renovate existing substandard public housing, and he offered that at the last meeting to do that as his contribution for this project to help us in Chapel Hill with affordable housing. And that still is a viable option from our point of view. We've talked to your staff about that, and they were reluctant to get into it in very great depth until they heard from council that that's something that they would like for them to consider. So with that, I'd like to open this up for questions. And I really would like to hear back from the council on the affordable housing. Give us some direction on affordable housing as to what you would like for us to investigate, and we will be glad to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so first is just clarifying questions about the project, and then we'll hear from the public, and then we'll come back with council comments. Are there clarifying questions about this project? Okay, can we hear from, is anyone in the public signed up to speak or wishing to speak on this item? If you would raise your hand.
There is no one.
All right, then I will bring it. I'll bring it back for council comment, and I'm going to take a point of privilege here as your mayor and say, before we get into all the details of this project, I want us to step back and take a broader view of our town's vision. We have recently had a housing study done that shone a light on what we needed in this community in order to support and become a sustainable community. We need workforce housing, we need young professional housing, we need affordable housing. We don't need any more student housing. We have a limited downtown, and the only place the downtown can grow is up the MLK corridor. We have been trying to bring commercial components to our town to help provide the jobs, the vibrancy, and we need people here 12 months out of the year. I understand that student housing projects are very lucrative, but the assessment was that we didn't need those in the near or even far future, that we had enough student housing already, even with UNC's planned growth line. I also want to share that I think it's something we need to think about, that a student housing project put in next to a town-sponsored senior affordable housing community is not exactly what I'd say was a good fit. If this was a commercial project or this was family, multifamily housing, we know that workers and families don't wish to live with students along in any kind of sense. We're talked about building community and connectivity and reasons for people to be places. So the particulars of the project are not as interesting to me at this point until we have a different option for something other than student housing. I welcome council comments now. If you feel, I would rather you give the 20,000 foot view from your perspective, and then you can give details of the project. But I just wanted to share that with you because we've done a lot of work on town visioning, the housing study, trying to figure out an overall vision. And we could fill up that town with student housing, but I'm not sure that's the outcome that we're looking for. So I saw Miss Anderson, then Miss Ryan.
Yeah, thank you. I will keep this brief. I don't wish to get into the details. I do think this project, if it was a different use, I think there would be a lot to comment on in terms of connectivity and placemaking. But I do feel that, especially given that we have, as the mayor said, we have wet lab space coming downtown. We're really trying to extend downtown down this part of MLK. I think it's really important that we focus on commercial here, as well as people living here who would work in these, in these places that we're creating downtown right now. So I'm not opposed to any housing here, but I think it would have to be combined with commercial, and it would have to be a different type of housing. I think this is also just so similar to what we saw the first time. And I really hope that, that we can move on to something that will really fit in well, and that will kind of bring our downtown around the corner, and that will serve those interests that I think we've had a lot of conversation about. So thanks.
All right, Ms. Ryan, then Ms. Miller-Fouché.
Yeah, so I agree wholeheartedly with what Jess and Pam have had to say. The only way our downtown is going to grow and help make that business community successful and self-sustaining is we've got to go up North Columbia and up MLK. I'm willing to wait till we get those projects. I think we don't need student housing. Our housing report has told us that. I am troubled by all the parking here in a place that's walkable to our downtown, that's walkable to campus. So for me, this project is a big no. Thank you.
Ms. Miller-Fouché.
Thank you. And I just like to echo what all my fellow council members have stated, and the mayor. We need residential family housing and commercial. This is not where we think student housing should be, and this does not meet our needs. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Parker?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to pile on, but I will. So I want to basically echo what's been said. I think that, I may or may not be interested in student housing somewhere in Chapel Hill, but this isn't the place where I would be. I think we need, as Ms. Ryan and everybody else has said, we really, we have a very thin, narrow downtown. The only place it can really grow is up MLK. And I think for our downtown, we need some better mix of commercial or 12-month a year residents who have disposable income, who may or may not work at the university or may not work downtown. But I think that this is just not really the best place for student housing. I would also ask my colleague, I think one thing though that I think we need as a council to do, in fairness to the development community writ large, is at some future work session or in some other way, be clearer about our student housing policy so that developers don't spend time and money coming to us with projects that may not get a very favorable reception. So I would hope that doesn't have, obviously not very soon, but sometime perhaps before we adjourn for the summer, we have an opportunity to discuss more fully our thoughts on student housing so that we have a more coherent view of it for the development community at large.
Okay. Mr. Searing, followed by Ms. Berry.
Yeah, if this were residential townhomes for people to buy that were, with the idea they're walking downtown, be very interested. Student housing in a 8-story giant building sitting right on Martin Luther King, not interested at all. So.
Okay, Ms. Berry.
I'd like to echo Councilmember Parker's comments about us being clear to the developers so that they know on the front end. And I'd love for us to explore how we can communicate that. And this seems to be a recurring theme this evening, is how do we get our message out so that an investment of time is a good investment. So I regret that the developer has invested this time since the last time being with us. I'm not certain that the developer heard this message the last time they came before us, that student housing. I don't know. I regret that I did not watch that meeting, but I would like for us to be clear up front in communicating this what type of development we would like to see in certain parts of the town, so that we can rebuild trust with our development community. Thank you.
Okay.
And I do want to say that I am not in favor of student housing here. We have such a great need for housing for people who live here year round.
Ms. Stegman or Mr. Nguyen, do you wish to add comments? Thumbs up to your colleagues or anything? No? Okay. All right. Okay. Does the developer have any questions back to us from what you've heard?
Well, just that we didn't get that message the last time we were here. And what I have heard personally over the last number of years is we didn't want student housing downtown, but several blocks away, especially on MLK on the transit corridor, was an appropriate location for it. So I think it would be a good idea to make this well known. Certainly, this is not something this group would have pursued had we known this. What we do know is the demographics of 29,000 students at UNC and only 11,000 living on campus. And if we don't put them somewhere, they're going to live outside of town, drive in, we'll get the traffic like we have and no tax base. So I think it would be maybe a good planning exercise for the town to visit student housing as a single subject. Where do we want it? If we don't want it, we're going to get the traffic and we're not going to get the tax base. I will add one more thing, Mayor Heminger, is going back decades and decades, many of the citizens in Chapel Hill used to complain about the university not providing any tax base for us. We had an opportunity with the university research campus, which never happened, but we were all excited that that would be tax base. Student housing, they're handing us tax base by not building it on campus, and they're not going to build it on campus. So we're going to be stuck with apartment complexes in Durham, students living in our neighborhoods, students living in Chatham and Alamance, wherever, and driving in. And I'm hearing a very loud and clear no tonight, but I'm sitting here as a citizen wondering, well, we need some solution. We need some solution, and this is not it. Saying no is not it.
Hey, Bruce, this is Russ Greer. I would ask Mayor Heminger if you've got this recent study, is that public information? Because I'd love to see the study, because
Yes.
I've actually talked to the University of North Carolina Housing Department, and they have explained to me that they've been in front of the council on a couple occasions and explained that there is a deficit in housing, and they've got a substantial budget that has to be funded to update the housing on campus, and it's not getting funded anyway in the short term. So I don't know. Everybody I've spoken to, including the university, has said something totally different from what you're saying this housing study says. So I would appreciate it if we could get a copy of it. I'd love to look at it, and I'd love to have more conversations about it. I mean, I know from a development standpoint that the demand is there. So, that's the only thing. And look, if you're saying you want it somewhere, I can't imagine a better location in Chapel Hill for accessing.
I put the report into the chat, and I think we did give feedback the last meeting that that student housing was not an interest, but I put the report in the chat, and I think that we've given our feedback.
Yeah, we've given our feedback, and I just want to share with you that the housing report was also co-funded by the university. In our meetings with the university, they encouraged us to look at this holistically, that their growth patterns, that new student housing projects pulled kids off campus and out of their dorms, which is an enterprise fund. They've had to actually shut down supply on campus because of this. So we're doing our work and our due diligence, But when we hired our consultant to help work on this housing study, and we're working on a Downtown Together project with the university, the deficits are for family and young professional and affordable housing. And Mr. Searing's right, the middle housing and the middle income housing. That is what our town needs and the vision. There are empty student housing rooms further up MLK. There's opportunities for students. There's not an overwhelming, it's not a crisis moment. So we've given our feedback. Is there a motion to transmit the comments, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Stegman. There'll be a roll call vote, please. Ms. Stegman.
Aye.
Ms.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye,
Ms.
aye,
Perry.
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen.
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fushi.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Ryan, where'd you go? There you
Aye.
are. Mr. Searing.
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well. Thank you. We will get our message more clear out there as we've learned from this housing study. We're still digesting all of it and working in partnership, and we will make sure the message of where we will have a discussion about this as council. So that is all on our agenda this evening, council members. Good work on efficiency tonight. We're pleased with this. We will see you, if not before, we will see you next Wednesday for a work session. And a friendly reminder that work sessions start at 6:30. And we will see you then. Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, all.
All right, Ms. Harvey and Brett.